this video, I'm going to show you how to set up an Instagram ad campaign from scratch. I'm going to walk you through the entire process, show you exactly what you need to do at each stage to get the best results possible. So if you're an Instagram advertising beginner and you haven't run an ad campaign before, going through this video first is going to be very, very useful. Likewise, if you've run Instagram ad campaigns in the past, or perhaps you've got Instagram ad campaigns live right now and you haven't got the results that you really want, that you feel are possible, going through this to make sure you've got everything set up correctly is going to be really beneficial as well. So with that said, let's get into it.
Okay, let's go.
So there are effectively two ways to advertise on Instagram. You can promote posts, you can advertise from within the mobile app. That's not a way that I would recommend. The features are very much dumbed down. The functionality that you've got is limited, and because of that, you're likely to get worse results than if you take advantage of all the features that are available through the second way. Now, Instagram do that because they want to make it as easy as possible for people to advertise, but it's not where you're going to get the best results. It's much better to run your ads through a Meta ad account. Now, Meta is now the company name that owns Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp. But if you want to advertise on either Facebook or Instagram or both, you do it through a Meta ad account. So the first thing you want to do is set up a Meta ad account, what's often referred to as a Meta business account, and then from within there, you can go about setting up your Instagram ad campaigns the right way. That'll give you the best possible chance of success. Now, I've created a whole separate video that you can check out. There'll be a link in the video description below that shows you exactly how to set up a Meta ad account if you haven't already done so. So if you haven't got one set up, I'd strongly recommend you go ahead and check out that video, and then you can come back to this one and follow on from this point where we're going to be walking through the campaign creation process and how you go about setting up a campaign. Where I am right now is in Ads Manager. So I'm within a Meta ad account, it's an example ad account. I'm in Ads Manager, and this is the window that you want to navigate to. How you get here, by the way, if you have got your Meta ad account set up and you're within a different place, because there are many different parts to a Meta ad account, and you're thinking, how do I get to where we are right now? On the left-hand side, these three little lines, if you click on these and just find a way to Ads Manager, then you'll come through to this section in here, okay? And then from here, you can follow on with exactly what I'm about to show you. So let's get started by clicking on this plus create button. And when you're creating an Instagram ad campaign, what you need to be aware of is that there are three levels to the campaign, okay? So there's the campaign level, then within that there are ad sets, that's the second level, and then within the ad sets there are ads. And each level governs different things. At the campaign level, which is what we'll start with, you're setting over some of the sort of overarching features of the campaign. So the very first thing you need to do is select a buying type. Now the default here is auction. Not all accounts, but most will have the option to switch to reach and frequency. I would strongly recommend that you go with auction. The way this works is that you are effectively bidding against all other Instagram advertisers for the people that you want to target, and it's simply done by an auction. That's what sets the price. With reach and frequency, you can guarantee a certain price to reach a certain amount of people a certain number of times. It's often used by bigger businesses that want to sort of lock in a certain amount of exposure for a certain price. The issue with that is that reach and frequency campaigns, those ads are often put in front of people that are less likely to convert, less likely to go ahead and make a purchase, less likely to go ahead and become a lead, or whatever it is that you're looking to achieve with your Instagram ad campaigns. That's how Meta is able to sort of guarantee the lower pricing, is because they're going to put your ads in front of often lower quality prospects. So definitely go with auction. We've tested that a whole bunch. The next thing we want to do is select a campaign objective. So when I'm recording this video, most ad accounts have switched over to this campaign objective, which is called ODAX, okay? So we've got these 6 different campaign objectives to choose from. It is possible that your ad account has the old campaign objective menu with more options on there. I'll explain how you make that work as well as we go through this process. So the first thing you want to do is make sure you go ahead and select the option that is most appropriate for your business. Now, most businesses, I would say 90% of the campaigns, probably more, that we run for our clients are either going to be lead campaigns or they're going to be sales campaigns. And that really depends on, are you an e-commerce business looking to generate purchase on your website? You want to go with sales, or are you a service-based business or a local business that wants to have people sign up or become a lead or get in touch, something along those lines. Now you'll see there are lots of other options, things like awareness, traffic, engagement. Those are great ways, if you select those options, particularly as a beginner, for you to spend a lot of money and not see any real results. Yes, you might send a whole bunch of people to your website if you select traffic, for example, but are those people going to go on to convert? Probably not. You are much better off going for leads or sales and optimizing for exactly what it is that you want. And I imagine that when you're looking to advertise on Instagram, there's a good chance that you are looking for more leads or more sales, or potentially both. That's what the vast majority of businesses want from any marketing, any advertising effort. Now, the reason why you want to go for one of those two options, I'm not going to go into this in too much detail, but I want to quickly cover it, is that Meta's machine learning process that optimizes your campaigns for you is very, very powerful. And Meta is very good at identifying the prospects on Instagram that are going to take the action that you tell Meta that you want. So for example, if you were to go ahead and select a traffic campaign, Meta is very good at finding the people on Instagram that are very clicky, that like to click on ads, that click on ads often. Doesn't necessarily mean they go on to convert. And that's why if you run a traffic campaign, you get a lot of link clicks, you get a lot of traffic to your website, but those people don't necessarily go on to do anything important for your business. Whereas if you go ahead and select leads or sales, Meta is going to try and find the people that not only click, but then go on to actually take those actions, become a lead, inquire, or go ahead and purchase. So just really important that you get this right. What I'm going to do is go ahead and select leads to walk through this process. It looks very, very similar for sales. A lot of the stuff is exactly the same. If you're using the old campaign objective menu, you've got more options here. You can go ahead and select conversions, and then you're going to see a very, very similar process. Effectively, we used to run what was called conversion campaigns all the time. That's been split in this new ODAX campaign objective menu between leads and sales. So I'm going to go ahead and select leads to go through this process, but you can do a very, very similar thing for sales as well. So once you've selected your campaign objective, just go ahead and click continue. And then we get presented with some more options at the campaign level. So obviously you want to give your campaign a name. Call this whatever you want. It should just be something that means something to your business. So for example, I could just call this like demonstration leads campaign, because that's what I'm doing. I'm creating this demonstration purposes. But if you had different campaigns for different, product ranges, for example, you would want to label it up so that you can come into your ad account and easily see your results and how they're performing and all that sort of stuff. Okay. Next section is special ad categories. Now it's very, very important that if your ads are going to fall within a special ad category, that you declare it at this section here. If you don't declare it, that's a very good way to get your ad account disabled. You can even have your Instagram profile be banned, temporarily restricted, etc. if you don't declare this. So just make sure that you do that. How do you know if your ads would fall into a special ad category? Well, the first thing to do is take a look at the list and just sort of common sense it. Are your ads anything to do with credit, for example, employment, housing, social issues? If they are, go ahead and select the one that applies. If you're a little bit unsure about this, Meta do provide more information, so you can click on learn more. You can take a look at advertiser policies and see where you might fall. If you're unsure, I would recommend going ahead and declaring it. When you do declare it, unfortunately, you are going to lose some functionality, particularly on the targeting side of things, but it is worth it to not have your ad account disabled, restricted. That is something that's very difficult to deal with and could be very damaging for your business, particularly if you get your Instagram ad campaign set up correctly, performing well, and then all of a sudden your ad account gets taken down. That could be quite damaging to your business. Most people are not going to need to select these, okay? But if you do, make sure you do go ahead and select them. Then we've got this campaign details section. We've already talked about buying type, and we've already talked about campaign objective. I don't want you to select any A/B tests. It's a useful tool once you get more advanced, but when you're an Instagram advertising beginner, when you're creating your first sort of campaigns, it's more complicated than you need to make it. I think it's really important that we set this up in a way that is relatively straightforward for you to run. Then we've got advantage campaign budget. Now what this means is that, do we want the budget set at the ad set level for individual ad sets, or do we want the budget set at the campaign level? Just to explain, we're jumping ahead a little bit here, but it's important for the context of this feature. Within one campaign, we would usually have 4 to 5 different ad sets. Each one of those ad sets would have a different targeting option. That allows us to test different targeting options to see which performs best. If we turn on advantage campaign budget, we can set one budget at the campaign level that is then distributed to those ad sets according to performance. So let's say ad set A is producing better results than ad set B, it will get more of the budget. If you leave it off, as is the default, you can set individual budgets at the ad set level and have more control over it manually. Personally, I quite like to turn this on. It is by no means a big mistake if you turn it off, or leave it off, I should say, and set budgets at the ad set level. But I like to turn it on because I like the idea that Meta is going to put more money into the parts of my campaign that are delivering better results. That's usually going to deliver a better return on ad spend overall. Once you select turn on advantage campaign budget, or if you do this at the ad set level, you're going to need to select a budget. Now, my recommendations for getting started with a budget for an Instagram ad campaign would be spend something that you can afford to lose. It's quite likely, particularly if this is your first campaign, that it won't work really well straight away. You might need to iterate and create a few different new ads and test different offers and things like that. That's absolutely to be expected. And you don't want to lose money that's important to you, critical to your business or maybe your own personal finances, in that stage when you're learning and testing, okay? So definitely don't bet the farm. But you don't want to spend such a small amount that it doesn't mean anything to your business or to you at all. Let's say you earn 100 grand a year and you set your daily budget at £2. Are you going to care? Are you going to bother checking back in on that? Probably not. It needs to be enough where you're going to care, you're going to be invested in the process, you're going to check back in, but not so much that it is in any way damaging. Now, of course, that's going to be a very different number for different people. There are some businesses that will start with 1,000 a day because they operate at a larger scale than others. Others are going to start at a much smaller point. Meta's default is £20 a day, which I'm going to leave it at for now, and you can obviously adjust that as you see fit. You see here that when under this campaign budget section, we've got daily budget selected, which is the default. If I select that, you can either do a daily budget or a lifetime budget. So for example, we've got daily budget £20 per day, or we could switch it to a lifetime budget and say over the next 14 days, I want you to spend this much per day. I would strongly recommend you go with daily budget. There's a few disadvantages to lifetime budget. Firstly, if you've got a campaign that's running and succeeding and doing well, you don't want it to turn off and have an end date. You just want to keep running that thing. Likewise, if that campaign that you want to keep running is doing well, you probably want to scale it up. Much easier to do with daily budgets. Lifetime budgets people often like because they like the idea that I'm going to spend this much and then it's going to end. That's more of a psychological thing than it is a sort of good for the ad account, good for your results type process, okay? So it's just something to be aware of there. Also with lifetime budgets, for some weird reason, the last couple of days, let's say you're running a 7-day campaign or a 14-day campaign, the last couple of days you tend to not really get any results. The budget just gets eaten. I don't know why. Shouldn't happen, but it does. Anyway, so what that means is go with daily budget. Then we've got campaign bid strategy. The default is highest volume. If I just click on edit here, that becomes an editable window, and then we can see there are a few different options. I would strongly recommend that you stick with the default, which is highest volume. That means that the campaign is going to, the machine learning process, the AI is going to work in your favor to get you as many, in this case, leads as possible, but it would work exactly the same for sales or whatever it is that you are optimizing for. You can set, cost per result goals, bid caps, etc. These are definitely more advanced features. Honestly, we don't use them that much anyway, because there are some issues with that, but go with highest volume, absolutely fine. You don't need to worry about this. Show more options either. So that is the campaign level setup, probably the most straightforward level. I've talked through the options here. You can see that for most businesses, there's not much to do here. You just got to set your buying type, leave it as default, set your campaign objective, set your budget if you turn on advantage campaign budget, and away you go. You're off on to the ad set level. Okay, so let's go ahead and jump there now. Okay, so jumping over to the ad set level, you can just click on this here. Now, there are a bunch of things that we need to select at the ad set level. And the ad set level is designed to govern a couple of things. Firstly, who you're going to advertise to, your targeting, and also how your campaign is going to be delivered, where it's going to show up. Those sorts of settings are all set at the ad set level. So you can very much think of it as within the campaign. You've got the campaign and you've got ad sets within that. So the first thing that we need to do, well, first thing you can do is obviously give this a name. Once you create different ad sets, you'll want to label them appropriately. I'll come back and do that in a second. Then we need to select a conversion location. So where do you want these leads to be generated? Now, when you're using the ODAX campaign objective menu, like we are in this ad account, and you've got leads selected, the default will be instant forms. So that means that when someone clicks on one of your ads, instead of being taken through to your website or somewhere external, wherever it is that you want to send them, instead, you are presented with a form within Instagram. And you may well have interacted with these as a user before, you might be familiar with them. So you're presented with a form that you can then provide, for example, your name, email address, phone number, and that business can then go ahead and get in touch with you. Obviously, in this scenario, you're the reverse of that. Now, that can be a good option. The leads are often quite inexpensive with instant forms. Sometimes the quality of those leads, because they're so easily generated, it's so easy for users just to quickly click on a few little buttons and become a lead. They're often not as good as if you send people to your website. So it's definitely, if you want to generate leads, something that I would recommend you test as an Instagram advertiser, but I would also recommend testing sending people to your website. And for most businesses, we're going to be sending through to website. That's probably going to be the better scenario in, say, 70 to 80% of cases. Doesn't mean you don't want to test the other option, but just that's something to be aware of. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is change this and select website instead. Now, in order to send people to your website and be able to track the action that people take, you need to have the Facebook pixel. It's called the Meta pixel now, and it governs obviously both Facebook advertising and Instagram advertising. You need to have that pixel installed on your website, and the conversion events need to be triggering properly. So for example, let's say someone comes through to your contact page, they fill out your contact form, and then they're taken to a thank you page saying, thanks for getting in touch. We will call you within the next 2 days, whatever it is it happens to be. When that page loads, it's important that you have the conversion event on that page load so that that can trigger a conversion, and then Meta goes, aha, that ad just generated a lead. That gets filtered into your ad account so you can see which ad that came from, which ad set, and it also allows that AI process that I talked about that Meta's going to do to work, where they're going, aha, we're generating leads via this, we can see it because the pixel is telling us this is happening. Great. Therefore, we can use this information to feed back into the campaign and make it better. It's why Instagram ad campaigns typically produce better results the longer and longer they run, which is something you should be aware of if you're an Instagram advertising beginner. So go ahead and get website selected and make sure you've got the Facebook pixel installed. I will include a link in the video description below showing you exactly how to get the pixel installed on your website. Very, very important with your advertising on Facebook, Instagram, etc. Get that installed if you're sending people to your website. Next thing, when we scroll down, is this performance goal section, okay? It's something that used to be called optimization for ad delivery. It governs how your campaigns are going to be optimized. So we kind of set that at the campaign objective level, but then within that, there are subcategories. So you can see the default for this performance goal is to maximize the number of conversions. So in this case, get us as many leads as possible. There are some other options. If you select under other goals, you can maximize the number of landing page views you get, number of link clicks, unique reach, etc. Absolutely go with the default, which is maximize number of conversions. If you're running a sales campaign instead of a leads campaign, you're going to see some other options here. You can maximize the number of conversions, but if you, depending on how you've got your pixel set up on your website, you could maximize not only the number of conversions, but also that conversion value. Because of course, if you've got an e-commerce site, let's say you're advertising products on Shopify, some sales are worth more than others. And you can factor that into this performance goal and say, yes, get me as many purchases, as many sales as possible, but please also prioritize the higher value ones. I'd like to advertise to people that are more likely to buy my more expensive stuff, which is often a good way to go. That's not available with this lead option, but just something that you should be aware of. Okay, then we get down to the conversion event. So obviously, as I've already mentioned, when someone fills out a contact form on your page and it's presented with a thank you page, and on that thank you page is code that says a conversion has happened, send that back to Meta as a conversion. We just need to let Meta know which conversion has taken place and which one we want to optimize for, because you could have tons of different conversion events on your website. So we're just going to simply add in lead. So I've just had a warning pop up here. When you do this, you shouldn't have a warning pop up. This has only happened because this is an example ad account. We haven't got everything set up pixel-wise as we usually would, and therefore there are errors going to pop up. If errors do pop up on yours, that's a good sign that something's wrong, and you may need to go ahead and set up your conversions and all that sort of stuff. As I said, link in the video description below for that pixel setup video that shows you how to do all of that, and you will need to do it. This is grayed out, cost per result goal, but I would ignore it for the time being anyway. I would also recommend ignoring for now dynamic creative. If you're new to Instagram advertising, you don't want to overcomplicate things. And just like at the campaign level, we want to ignore A/B tests, the same with dynamic creative, definitely something that you can play with later down the line. Okay, so we scroll down. We've already set the budget at the campaign level. If we hadn't, you would be setting that here, and all the same logic applies. Just remember that if you are setting the budget at the ad set level and you have multiple ad sets, that you could easily end up spending more. So just be aware of that. If you had, say, £20 per day per ad set and you go with 5 ad sets, that's going to be £100 per day. Just something to be aware of. You can set a start date. It just defaults to when I'm, whenever you're creating this, when I happen to be recording this video. You can also set an end date. So if you know you're going to be traveling, for example, and you absolutely want a campaign to end, you can go ahead and set an end date and just make sure it turns off so you don't have to go back in and manually do it. If you're planning on running this campaign on an ongoing basis, which is what I'd recommend most Instagram advertisers do, particularly if it's generating good results, why wouldn't you want to keep running it? I wouldn't recommend setting an end date. I like the idea that as an Instagram advertiser, you're going to be in your Meta ad account often enough to just be able to make adjustments and make a call on how it's performing, whether it needs to turn off or budget needs to change and all that sort of stuff. That's what we personally do, and that's usually what I would recommend. Okay, then we scroll down to the audience section. Now, I think that sort of Meta advertising, what used to be referred to Facebook advertising, the umbrella term for Facebook and Instagram ads, sort of became famous with its targeting options, being able to specifically reach the people that you want to reach. That has somewhat changed. There's more emphasis now put on the ads and less on the targeting that used to be, but it's still a very important thing, particularly when you are getting started. So when you've got a new ad account and Meta doesn't really know the type of person that buys, what time of day they buy, what time of week they buy, or become a lead in this case. So you need to give them some direction in terms of who you want to put their ads in front of. So this very top section here, custom audiences. Custom audiences refers to, well, a few different things. Within custom audiences, you have custom audiences. You also have lookalike audiences and you also have saved audiences, but we can ignore that. Custom audiences are warm audiences. So they're people that have interacted with your business before. People who have visited your website, could be people on your email list, people who have watched videos of yours on Instagram. There are lots of different options in custom audiences. I would recommend you don't target those options right now. That's, again, not necessarily an advanced technique, but something that you probably don't want to do on your very first campaign. You want to wait a few weeks, months maybe, before you've got things up and running, you've got an understanding of things before you add that in. Also, if you're new to Instagram advertising, you might have a relatively new business. You may not, of course, but you might have a new business, in which case you're not really going to have any warm audiences to target yet, so it makes sense to wait. So you can ignore custom audiences. I would also recommend ignoring lookalike audiences, which is also entered into this custom audience field. For those of you who aren't aware, lookalike audiences are where you take a custom audience, so let's say people who have visited your website, and you give that to Meta and you say, all these people visited my website within the last, however long it happens to be, let's say 90 days, 180 days, something like that. I would like you to basically run data analysis on those people and then create me an audience of people that are similar to those people. So if you show them that the people that visit your website happen to be on average 42, female, they live in New York State, for example, well then your lookalike audience is going to contain a lot of people that are very similar and meet a lot of those same sort of demographic criteria, but also interests and other targeting options, things like that. A very powerful technique, not something that you want to use right now. That can absolutely be added in a week's time, couple weeks time, depending on how fast you learn and go through this. Doesn't need to be done with your first campaign. If you're interested in finding out more, by the way, about how to create custom audiences, how to make them work for your business, the same with lookalike audiences, I have tutorials, full tutorials on both. So there'll be links in the video description below. You can go ahead and check out those and go through that entire process, but we're not going to cover it right now. Next, we get to locations. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and click edit here. Meta's defaulted to be the country in which I'm based, which is the United Kingdom, and they've defaulted to the whole country. I would basically recommend that you start by advertising in the main areas that you can service. So for example, if I was advertising our business, which is a digital marketing agency, we can not only service the UK, we can do the US, Canada, we have clients all around the world. But our biggest markets are going to be, say, UK and US. So we might start with those two countries. We might just start with the one. It's perfectly large enough population size to begin advertising to. What you don't want to do with your location targeting is get really specific. There's not much advantage in really narrowing it down. Let's say, for example, we have clients throughout the UK. And we've calculated that, say, 40% of our clients are in London. So we think, well, that's our biggest grouping of clients. Let's just advertise to London. Well, that would be silly because we're still missing out on the 60% of other businesses that currently work with us that are based around the rest of the UK, and that's likely to be a trend that continues as we advertise. So absolutely fine to advertise countrywide. Meta is smart enough to know that out of the whole country, people in London are more likely to be interested in our services, so they'll advertise to those more. But what you don't want to miss out on is, using the UK as an example, someone in Manchester that has just been searching for the last 3 days on Google for digital marketing agencies, and Meta is able to pick up on that based on their activity, and then you don't want to miss out on that person. You want to put your ads for our business in front of that person, and those types of people are going to be that's going to apply to all businesses, right? If you sell specialty dog food and your main market is California, there's going to be other people in, say, Texas that might not be a main market that are also searching for that and interested in that, and based on their activity on Instagram and other places, it's obvious they're into dogs and that sort of thing, and you want to put your ads in front of those people. So give Meta a lot of flexibility there, go with that. If you are a local business though, and you don't serve people that are, say, further than 10 miles from your location, then make sure you only advertise in that area. Don't artificially increase the area that you're advertising to in order to make your audience larger or anything like that. It's a mistake I see people make. Now you can get more specific, so this is default into the UK, but I live, for example, in a town in England called Cheltenham, and there we go, Cheltenham, Gloucestershire. And for example, I can pop that in here. You can see where it's based, and then the automatic radius is 25 miles. You know, I could choose to reduce that or extend it if I want. If I wanted to go, let's say 15 miles around my current location, because I'm a local business and that's as far as I think people are realistically going to travel, or perhaps I'm a service business and that's as far as I'm willing to travel to service, you know, people and businesses or whatever it happens to be, then that is absolutely fine. I can go ahead and add that in. Now, one thing to keep in mind on the right-hand side here is audience definition. So we've got an estimated audience size here. Given this selection, I've got an estimated audience size of 400 to 470 odd thousand people. That's really important for this next stage. I don't want you to go beneath an audience, if you can help it, of 250,000 people as sort of a minimum audience size. Now, of course, if you're based somewhere fairly rural, fairly remote, and you only work with people within 10 miles of where you are, and you're thinking, well, there's only 20,000 people in this audience, 30, that's absolutely fine. That's absolutely fine. But I'm saying if you can help it, don't go beneath 250,000. If, for example, we are just targeting this area and we're already at, you know, less than double our target, we don't want to then come in here at the age or the detailed targeting sections and further narrow that audience very much at all. Whereas if I delete this out and I add back in the entirety of the United Kingdom, there we go. Then we can see the audience here is 43 to 51 million. Then if we're starting with that audience size, because we can service the whole of the UK, then we can get much more specific with our age, detailed targeting sections, etc. Okay, so just something to be really aware of. I'm just gonna go with the UK for demonstration purposes, but just know how your location then factors into subsequent decision making. Next, we've got age. I'm a big fan of obviously going after your target demographic, but being quite generous with that. So let's say your absolute core demographic was people aged 25 to 35. We'd be looking at doing something like 20 to 45 as our targeting. We'd keep it nice and broad, because again, Meta's smart enough to know that yes, your core demographic is 25 to 35, but there's a 41-year-old that's really into whatever it is that you sell. Let's put our ads in front of that person and others like them, okay? So that's typically what we would do if we're advertising our services, you know, digital advertising, agency services. We would increase the younger age range to perhaps something like 25, and then we'd often just leave it at 65 plus. We might cap this slightly based on results and go with 60, bearing in mind the majority of our clients are going to fall in, let's say, the 30 to 55 range, but we might be a bit generous. As I said, that will often be 65 plus. And you can see whenever you start to make changes here, you're going to start to see that audience come down. With genders, if you are very heavily skewed one way, let's say 90%, you know, female is your target audience, then absolutely you can come in and click edit and select women. If you are even say 60-40, 70-30, we'd recommend going with all. Because again, Meta is smart enough to know, okay, this target market is predominantly female, but there are some men that are interested in it, so let's advertise in front of them. And one of the other things we find is that if you're advertising, say, a product that could be a gift, is that let's say it's targeted at women and women often buy it for themselves, or sometimes their partners are going to be buying it for them, and therefore you can be targeting men, and that can work quite well. Okay, then we get into the detailed targeting section. So there's tons you can get into in the detailed targeting section. You can really go down the rabbit hole with this. That's something I'd recommend you do later down the line. Let's get you started with your Instagram ad campaigns first, and then come back in and really flesh this out and get a lot of details. So what I recommend you do is just start having a look round, entering terms that are related to your products and services. So for example, we could add in something here for my business like digital marketing. And you'll see that we've got here digital marketing as an interest. That seems like a pretty good option. We could go ahead and select that. I could add in something like social media marketing. We do marketing on Facebook, Instagram, etc. Then we've got a few different ones that have come up. We've got social media marketing as a job title. Well, we don't want that if we're after clients because we don't want people that work in the industry, something to watch out for. Social media marketing employer, same thing. We don't want people working in the industry. We want businesses that are likely to hire us for that service. So we could go with social media marketing as an interest as well. We could go with other things like small business owners. I'm familiar with the options, which is why I'm typing them straight in. That's a behavior. So you've got behaviors, demographics, and interests in this detailed targeting section. Absolutely fine to use whatever one seems most appropriate. So small business owners are people that are our target demographic, people who own small businesses, okay? So you can go through and enter in some search terms and just see if them pop up. Not all will, that's absolutely fine. You can also click browse, and then you can literally just go through all the categories and see what comes up. You can see it categorized. So let's say, we want to click on parents, for example, because you sell a product that is aimed that parents will buy for their children. Then you can go in parents and have a look at the various options and select by the age of the kid and all that sort of stuff, okay? So you can just go through and have a little browse, doesn't take long, but just basically use your common sense at this point, come up with, say, 8 to 10 different options, roughly, doesn't have to be that many if you can't find that many, that you think are highly representative of your target market, and then go ahead and write those down. And then what we're going to do is we're not going to what's called stack these interests in here. So we're not going to go ahead with 3 or 8 to 10 different detailed targeting options in one ad set. Instead, what we're going to do is we're going to break out each one of these into its own separate ad set, and that's how we're going to test. So when we first launch our Instagram ad campaign, we'll have one ad set targeting small business owners, one ad set targeting people interested in digital marketing, another ad set targeting people interested in social media marketing, and we're going to run that campaign. And then because we've got the pixels set up and we're monitoring how many leads we're generating from each of those ad sets, we can come back in a few days' time, in a week's time, and say, okay, out of those options, small business owners did best. It did better than these other options, which is actually true, by the way, if you're advertising in this industry. And then we can make that adjustment and turn these other ones off, put more budget into that one, and that's how you improve your results, okay? So what I'm gonna go do is delete these two out, and I'll quickly show you how you set up those other ad sets really quickly and easily right at the end. So what we wanna do now, we've given this a detailed targeting option, is give this a name, okay? So I would usually call this something like, what do we got here? UK, that's what we're targeting in terms of location. We're going 25 to 60 and small business owners, okay? So UK, 25 to 60 small business owners. And that's just really useful because when you've got lots of different ad sets going, it's good to be able to see exactly what's in there, what's the results, etc. Okay, so let's carry on and scroll down because there are a couple of other things to do at the ad set level. Next thing I want to quickly mention is languages. If I'm advertising somewhere like the UK, you can just go with all languages, English, fairly obvious there. But certain places you might want to be more specific. If you're in a country like Canada, for example, where there are French-speaking parts and English-speaking parts, maybe you want to get more specific and say like, oh, we work with French speakers only, or your product or service is more suitable to them. Let's say it's in French. Not going to apply to too many people, but depends where you live and where you're advertising. Then we've got placements. So placements refers to where your ads are going to be displayed across Facebook, Instagram, and even other locations. So Meta recommends that you go with automatic placements. Well, they used to call it automatic placements, they now call it Advantage Plus placements, and that's basically everywhere. So if you go with that option, you're going to run your ads on Facebook, Instagram, on Instagram Stories, Facebook Reels, Facebook feed, Instagram feed, Marketplace, all sorts of different options. If you want to be more specific, for example, if you just wanted to make this an Instagram advertising campaign, which you might well do because that's title of this video and all that sort of stuff, then what you want to do is go ahead and click on manual placements. You can ignore devices, you can go with all devices, absolutely fine. I'm going to delete that out because Instant Articles doesn't affect anyone anyway. And then you can see that we've got 4 major platforms where ads can be shown. And then within those platforms, there are specific locations. So obviously, if you just wanted this to be an Instagram advertising campaign, you would deselect Messenger. That's like the Facebook Messenger app, Meta Messenger app that you're familiar with. Yes, ads can show up there as well. Audience network, that's locations that are external to Facebook and Instagram that are sort of connected. So you've probably seen this on either Facebook or Instagram where you click on a link and it comes through to an article that's like kind of within the app, but not. A lot of that is going to be categorized under audience network. And then you could, of course, deselect Facebook and just run ads on Instagram if that's what you want to do. That's what I'm going to do in this example because this video is an Instagram ads video. Usually, by the way, we would run ads on Facebook as well, and we would then adjust based on the results that we see where we want more of our budget to go. A lot of businesses nowadays are quite anti-Facebook. They really want to be more pro-Instagram. That's seen as like the trendier, cooler option. Not always the case when it comes to actually generating results. Often we're seeing just as good, if not better results on Facebook, and it is as simple as clicking a button to advertise on Facebook as well. So just something to keep in mind. But if you did just want to go with Instagram, which is what I'll do here, we can then see there's still 7 out of 19. So there's still 7 different places within Instagram that our ads can appear. So there's feeds, there's stories and reels. If we click into some of these, you can break that down further. You know, there's Instagram feed, there's profile feed, there's Instagram Explore, etc., etc. You may have a preference either way, whether you want to go with feeds and include all the feeds or go with stories and reels, include all of those. The vast majority of the time, we're going to advertise on both. You can customize how your ads look at the ad level, which we'll get onto in a minute. So you can, if you were worried about, yeah, but I don't want ads to look bad on stories if they're, you know, using the aspect ratio of like a feed ad and vice versa, you can customize that and still run it through the same ad set, same ads, no problem, which is what I'd recommend you do. So the vast majority of the time, we're going to leave these. If you do want to turn one off, that's fine as well. You just want to advertise on stories. There are businesses that do that, just advertise on stories, and you can go ahead and do that. If you want to get really specific, then you can do it. You can turn it off. But most of the time, if we just want to run an Instagram ad campaign, we're going to run it exactly like this, okay? Then we've got a show more options button here down below, but that is all stuff you do not need to worry about, basically ever, but definitely not at this point when you're getting your Instagram ad campaigns underway and learning the process. So that is the ad set level. That's probably the most complicated level of the 3 in an Instagram ad campaign. And now we're going to move on to the ad level where we're actually putting together the thing that your prospects are going to see. So now that we've got the ad set level all sorted, let's move on to the ad level, which again, I can do by clicking here. So obviously you can give this ad a name. I'm going to come up and do that later because it's going to depend on what you actually put in your ad is what I'd recommend. So the first thing we need to do is handle this identity section. Now, hopefully when you went through that video showing you how to set up a Meta business account, you went through and added in, you know, your Facebook page, your Instagram account, all that sort of stuff. So that's going to filter through here automatically. If you have multiple Facebook pages, Instagram accounts, you want to make sure that you select the right one from the drop down. And it's just pretty important that you do have an Instagram account here. If not, you can still run ads on Instagram, but they will appear from your Facebook page. That means you're not going to be building any followers on Instagram. You're not going to be doing some of the things that you probably like to happen, as well as the lead sales, etc., that you want from your Instagram advertising efforts. So just make sure you've got Instagram account selected in here and set up. And by the way, if you're on Instagram and you fancy finding out more about this type of stuff, go ahead and give me a follow. You can see that Ben Heath Marketing is how you go ahead and find me on Instagram. Okay, so then we've got ad setup. Now, in this campaign, we've been defaulted to create ad. Often you'll have a different default here where Meta is trying to get you to do things dynamically. Not something I'd recommend for beginners. Much better that you do go ahead and create the ad manually as we can see here. So if, for example, you don't see that the default is selected to manual upload and you haven't got create ad up here and stuff, definitely come in and select those options and then you'll be able to go through the process with me. If I just quickly click on this little drop down, you can see that yes, you can create ad as I've already discussed you want to do. You could also use an existing post. If you've got something that's performed really, really well and you want to just advertise that, you can go ahead and do it. Most of the time though, you're going to want to select create ad and then go through the process, at least while you're learning and getting used to this sort of stuff. Okay, next thing is format. Okay, how would you like your ad to look? Do you want it to be a single image or video? I'm sure you've seen ads like that in the past. Would you like it to be a carousel, which is where you've got sort of pictures alongside some text like cards of individual, usually products, where you can advertise a number of products at once? Or you could go with collection, which again is a way where you can advertise a group of different items. For starters, we're going to go with single image or video, and most businesses are going to want to do that to get started. Multi-advertiser ads is automatically selected. I'd recommend that you deselect that. Not a feature I'm a huge fan of. I don't necessarily want your ad showing up alongside other people's ads, or other people's ads showing up alongside yours is probably a more accurate way to put it. When your ads are being displayed, I want that to be the focus within your campaigns. So I would recommend deselecting that. It's still a relatively new feature, so we're not 100% sure how this does, but I'm not a huge fan at this point. Then we scroll down to the add creative section. So the first thing you want to do is add in your media, your image, your video, etc. Now there's tons you can do with this, think about with this, learn, improve, etc. I've got lots of other videos on my channel about that sort of stuff. To get started with, I'd recommend you keep it nice and simple. So unless you've already got a video that you think is good to go and ready and has been produced for this, or maybe some other reason you can use it, then great. Otherwise, I'd stick to a single image to keep things nice and simple and straightforward to begin with. So to do that, you simply want to go ahead and click on Add Media, select from Add Video or Add Image. I'm going to select Add Image. And then from within here, we can either specifically select upload, click on that button and upload a file that we might have on our computer, or we could try and find images that we've got within our ad account already. If you're just getting started, you probably won't have that. Or from these drop-down lists, you can go and grab images from your Facebook page, or perhaps more important, more pertinent to this video is images that you've already got on Instagram. So you could go on Instagram images, go ahead and grab an image from there, and then feed it straight through into your ad. I'm just gonna go ahead and upload a quick image, and we'll see that in the ad in a second. Okay, so I've added in my image, and now we get to this next page where we can show how we want our ads to be displayed for certain placement options. So remember, within the Instagram sort of platform, we've got two main groupings of placements. We've got feeds, and then we've got stories and reels. Now you can see that this image has been sort of cropped, looks kind of fine within feeds, but I could change it if I wanted to. I could switch to the original, make it look like that. It doesn't look quite good. I go 1-to-1 recommended, but I could crop at, a different stage. Maybe I want it to look more like that to centralize the figure. You can have a little play about with these things, but you can also do it with different placement options. So I can't crop that to make that smaller. That's just kind of how it looks, but I can go ahead and replace it with a different image that has a different aspect ratio. So that's often something that we'd recommend, and I mentioned that earlier about customizing ad creative for placement, is that's going to look pretty naff in a story. You could do it, but it's not going to get the best results. Much better to use either just a different version of that image that's sort of cropped differently and upload that, or maybe just use a completely different image that looks in a different way, or maybe just use a completely different image or a different version of this image. Maybe when someone was taking this photo, if it's of your product, service, whatever, you get someone to take a portrait one instead, or you can find a different stock photo that's in a different aspect ratio, but you'd want to replace this out and use one that looks better for those placement options. I'm not going to do that here because this is for demonstration purposes, and I'm sure you get how to do that. You just click replace and pop the other image in. Okay, then we go ahead and click next, and we're taken on to this Advantage Plus creative window where we can sort of add in further enhancements and go through this stuff if we want to. So we've got standard enhancements switched on. So this would be things like changing the aspect ratio. They can even edit the creative slightly depending on, like how it looks and how they can make it look. So that's absolutely fine to leave that on. You can see that's 1 of 4. You can also go with image brightness and contrast and turn that on if you want to. Most of the time it's going to look fine. Obviously make sure you look at a preview and make sure it does look fine. They haven't over brightened it or over contrasted it. It's just going to make your image look a bit better. You can see on the right hand side the 2 examples of the difference. Next is music. So you can go ahead and turn that on. So when your image appears in, say, Reels, for example, you can have music apply just to make it a little bit more interesting, help retain people on that reel, which is going to give you more time for them to check out the various information, give you a greater chance of generating a lead or a purchase. So usually worth going ahead and turning music on. You can go ahead and select specific ones or keep it really, really simple and just go with automatically apply music and let Meta select one. They're pretty good at doing this, getting better all the time, so that's absolutely fine. And then we've got 3D animation, which at this point is still really quite buggy. It can work really well when it works, but sometimes doesn't work and can make things worse. So as an Instagram advertising beginner, I'd leave that off for now. You can absolutely come in and add it in later on, or maybe even just have a play, turn it on, have a play and see what it does to your images that you're using and just get an idea for how that looks and whether it's going to work. I'm going to leave it off for now because, as I said, it's still a relatively buggy feature, to be perfectly honest. Okay, so now we've got our image in, we can start to see these ad previews on the right hand side. So this is how our ad is going to look on the Instagram feed. This is how our ad is going to look on stories. Here we've got Reels. Obviously we already discussed you would be switching out the image because that's important. And then we need to fill out the rest of our ad. Now, just to explain what this ad is for, I've modeled from an ad that we used for a client of ours where they basically had like an online system that allowed people to deliver offer their services remotely. So, if you're a plumber or a computer technician, you could have someone hire you for the hour to help you out with stuff remotely. That sort of thing. That was the basic sort of premise of the business. Obviously, I can't talk about the name or anything like that because that's all confidential, but that was the idea. And we've modeled from an ad of theirs that did really well, that was trying to get people to sign up for this, and it's quite similar. So I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste in the other details, starting with the primary text. So here we've got primary text. As I said, it's similar to the example that actually worked well. And I'm just going to quickly run through this. Again, I've got more videos about primary text and things like that on ads if you want to find out more information on that. But just to run through this to explain sort of the type of stuff that we're looking to include in here. So we've got want to monetize your skills and expertise without having to go anywhere. That's sort of identifying the target market. If people are going to read that and go, yeah, I'd love to do that, they're going to read on. With Remotify, that's just a name I came up with, by the way, not the name of the business we work with. With Remotify, you can use your smartphone to provide services remotely. Connect with people through live video or chat and help them solve their problems for a fee from the comfort of your own home. So there we're demonstrating features of the service here, and we are also emphasizing the benefits as well. So you can use a smartphone to do it remotely, which means you can do it from the comfort of your own home, as we say in this ad, or as the image is demonstrating, you could be off traveling and doing that sort of thing, okay? Features and benefits, that's what you want to include in ad copy. Whether you're a plumber, computer expert, translator, etc., there's a market for you. So helping explain the process to people, because what you don't want people read the copy on your ads to go, oh, that doesn't apply to me. If you give lots of examples, they go, oh, yeah, that's kind of similar to what I do. If they're doing it, I could do it. And then we've got sign up with Remotify and find new customers today. So we've got a call to action at the end of the primary text. So this video isn't a crash course on primary text, but that's just a few little tips. Start by identifying your target market, include features and benefits, explain what it is, finish with a call to action is a good, nice, tidy structure. You can see we've got primary text 1 of 5. You can, of course, go ahead and add in other options if you want, and then Meta will cycle through those to see which performs best. Primary text is not as important with Instagram ads as it is with, say, Facebook ads. It's often it's less prominent, shall we say. We can see if we go to feeds, it's going to be displayed beneath the image as opposed to primary text, which is often more prominently featured. Then we've got the headline, and again, that is even less important in Instagram. It's often not going to show up, whereas on Facebook it's really, really important, but definitely still worth adding in. And here we've gone with a really benefit-rich headline, monetize your skills and expertise remotely, which coupled with the image makes complete sense. As I said, on not all placements this is even going to show, and where it does, it's going to be less important, but worth adding in. If you are ever going to run this ad on Facebook as well, then things like the headline become a lot more important. And again, we've got headline 1 of 5. You can add in other options if you want. Then we've got this optimized text per person section here. Fine to leave that going on when you're getting started. I think with beginners, this helps you not make mistakes with your ad copy. As you get more advanced, turn it off. I've got a whole nother video about that. But for now, it's not something that would concern me too much. Then we get to the call to action button. Again, this is going to be more prominent in certain features than others. If we go to Instagram Reels, for example, we see we've got this really big learn more button here, right? So what we want to do is go ahead and select the option that is most appropriate for what we want people to do. Here we want them to sign up with Remotify because we're looking to build a group of people that can offer services. So we would want to go with, in that case, sign up. But you can see from this call to action list, there are lots of different options, right? And you could just want to go with the one that makes the most sense for your business. Again, less prominently shown on Instagram than it is on Facebook, but still something important. Well, on Reels it's not. You can see how significant it is there, but on other placements it definitely is. But I still want to make sure you go ahead and get that added in. And that's just something, if you have, for example, been advertising on Facebook before and then you're moving over to Instagram right now, or adding Instagram, and that's why you're going through this video, you need to be aware that the image, the creative, becomes a lot more important. So often you want to explain more. So with an image like this, we would often test different versions where we might turn it into like a slideshow and a video where we explain the offer sort of with text used on that small short video. Or we might just put some text overlay on that image itself. So yeah, just something to be aware of, that to take this to another level, those are some of the steps you would do. I want you to get set up nice, easy, simple, so I'm not going to add that in, but that's something that you can go ahead and do. Okay, next section is destination. Where do you want people to go after they click on your ad? Now, obviously this is really, really important that you get this right. This is not where they're going to convert, by the way, so not the thank you page they're taken to after they become a lead, but where you want to send them to first. So for example, for our website, we could either just send them to the homepage, leadguru.co.uk, or we could send them to our services page if that's what we wanted to do, right? So just make sure you go ahead and add that in. You can add in a display link if you want, if you wanted it to look different, depends on the link you use, often not necessary. Most businesses won't want to add a call extension, fairly self-explanatory how that works. We wouldn't in my business, that's not how we operate. People book in calls, but you can do it if you want. Then we get down to languages. You can allow Meta to add translations, automatically translate. Again, this is really going to depend on where you're advertising. If we're advertising somewhere like the UK, just not necessary. Just about everyone speaks English, so you can just go ahead and use an English-based ad. Some places that may or may not be more important. Then we get down into tracking. Now this should all just pull through automatically when you've got your pixel set up properly, and you shouldn't need to touch any of this. And in fact, you can see here that most of it is all grayed out anyway. So provided you've got all that set up, as I said, link in the video description below with a tutorial on that, then you can go ahead and just leave this tracking section and it's nice and easy. So next thing we need to do is name this ad, right? So we could call this something like man decking laptop, you know, to identify that that's the image used, okay? And we might want to say something about the ad copy if we were going to run different variations. You know, we could say monetize, you know, because that was the focus, that was the hook of this ad, monetize your skills and services remotely, and that might be an ad image, okay? So if we close this down, and we can see, as we discussed before, we've got the campaign level, demonstration leads campaign. We've got the ad set level, which is, you know, the small business owners, and we've got the ad level. I mentioned earlier that you want to run multiple ad sets. You also want to run multiple ads. So let's say, for example, that we had this image that we wanted to use, we really liked it, but we also wanted to test this against another ad with a different image. What we would do is we would come in here and click duplicate, and we would duplicate it into the original campaign. You can select the number of copies. I'm just going to go with one. We would normally use 3 or 4 different ads in each ad set, by the way, just as a side note. Then we would click duplicate, and we would edit the new version, the duplicate, to how we want it to be. So we could, for example, switch out the image to something else. So if I go ahead and do that, okay, so I've just quickly skipped through the exact same process I went through with the previous ad image, but instead of the man here, we've got a woman lying on the beach with a laptop. So we would come up and then change this, and we would have woman beach laptop image, okay? And then we would run these and we would see, okay, which one produces better results, which one gets more clicks, which one gets more leads, most importantly, and then that's how we would do it. And then you do the exact same thing with the ad set level, as we discussed. So we've got these 2 ads now in this ad set. If we jump to the ad set level and we go ahead and duplicate this into the original campaign, we'll create 1 copy. Again, I would recommend you have 4 or 5 different ad sets, something like that, and you would have the same 3 or 4 different ads in each ad set, right? So there's only 3 or 4 ads you create, and then you duplicate those across ad sets, and that allows you to properly test each targeting option at the ad set level. So we had small business owners, and then, for example, one of the other options was digital marketing, wasn't it, as an interest? So if we select digital marketing up there, and then we come in and add this in here, digital marketing as an interest, and we delete out small business owners, and then boom. So you can see we've got, actually, if I go ahead and open that up, we can start to see the structure. So we've got demonstration leads campaign nicely at the top here, and within this campaign so far we have 2 ad sets, one targeting those people, the other targeting those people, and within each of those ad sets we have those 2 ads testing the different images. And that's how we would then, once we're up and live, go about improving campaigns, is we would keep testing targeting options, keep testing images, keep testing ad copy, keep testing, we might test other ad formats like video, keep testing all sorts of different elements to find the best possible combinations and significantly improve results over time. And that's where the absolute best results come from, is from that testing process. So once you're all done, what you want to then do is go ahead and click publish on the right hand side. Meta's then going to take, can be just a couple minutes, can be a few hours to review the campaign, and then provided it's all good, it will then go live and you should start to see results. Maybe not conversions, because as I said, this is a skill that needs to be learned if you want to get the great results, but you'll at least start to see results in terms of your ads being put in front of people pretty much immediately, and that's the process. I'm not going to click publish now because this is not a real campaign and not something that we actually want to run, but just so you know how the process works, you go ahead and do that. So if you're new to Instagram advertising, I think it's really important that you are aware of what's likely to happen and you have the right expectations, because I think the wrong expectations lead to a lot of people quitting early. So I'd strongly recommend you go ahead and check out this video. It talks about why Instagram advertisers quit, why they fail, and if you go through that, it's not very long, you'll have a much better understanding of where the potential pitfalls are, you can avoid them, and hopefully have success with Instagram advertising.